what? Today, I don't know what's going on with my hair. This is a weird look, but we are going to be celebrating all things Granny Square today. So Granny Squares, if you aren't familiar with them, they are things like this.
This is Cricut Maker 3.
Oh, sorry.
The ultimate smart cutting machine.
Gotta mute the computer. But you can make things like this. I'm gonna show you a few different examples of what you can actually make, but they're just a very versatile yarn craft that anyone can make, from, beginner to advanced. There's so many different techniques out there. And the reason I'm really excited about it right now, I love granny squares anyway. When I walked around the entire house today trying to find examples, they were everywhere. But the reason right now it's kind of such a big thing is Red Heart just came out with some granny square yarn. And I'm going to show you that shortly. And we'll kind of talk about some pros and cons of the yarn. It's not for everybody. In fact, I don't know if I would buy it again, but I have some, so we're going to go through that. But we're going to take a look at some different things that you can make with granny squares, and then I'm also going to show you how to make your first granny square. Or if you have been making granny squares, maybe the technique I use might just click. I am not an expert in crochet, so I definitely want to make sure I throw that out there. I've been crocheting since I was little. I feel comfortable with it. I can read a pattern. But I'm an expert in many things, but in this, I just really enjoy it, and I wanted to share with all of you because you had lots of questions. So welcome, 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 welcome. First of all, I do want to give a shout out, not sponsored, but to, and I think I might have mentioned this last time, but I didn't show it, the Yarn Companion. Okay, and again, this is just, I want to give each week when we go live, I want to give some special recognition to small businesses out there, whether it's on Etsy or just having their own shop. And this is one of those folks. So this is called the Yarn Companion. She also makes a, what do you call that? A fly-friendly version that you can bring on the plane that doesn't have the scissors. And essentially it has a bunch of different hooks, your little needles there. It has your, what do you call that? Tape measure right here as well with different styles. I think there's a cute little pig. But I love this because I keep this upstairs now. So when I have a few minutes, I can go upstairs and crochet without having to bring my entire collection with me. So it's pretty amazing. So anyway, shout out, down in the link, you can find their Etsy shop. You can click the link, go support. Again, a small business. We want to raise everybody up. Okay, let's talk about granny squares. Number one, granny squares are very simple because you can use small amounts of yarn, you can use large amounts of yarn, you can really customize it with different styles, and you can also do very basic patterns. So let's take a look at a few different examples. I mentioned, first let me start with the sweater because I need to take this off. It is very warm down here and I'm glistening, probably because of all the lights, and I'm in the basement. I talk a lot, by the way, so if you're new here, yeah, this is what you're in for. So this is actually a hexagon cardigan. So it's made with two different granny squares that are hexagon shape, and then they're just grafted together in the back. Okay, and then there is some additional crochet, like scalloping around the sides, and then I did add a pocket to this little one right here with another granny square. So this is one thing you can make with granny squares. Let's talk about this vest. Okay, so this vest I actually bought on Etsy. Can I make this? Absolutely. But again, I wanted to support a small business. So we have this adorable little vest right here. This is a granny square. I made something similar here. I was working on a project for a little kiddo. So we have this here. But this style right here, we have two different colors. So granny square in the front, granny square in the back, and then just a few granny clusters on the side to connect it. So many things that you can make with granny squares. Now, some other really cool things you can make with granny squares, little boho tanks. So once it starts warming up a little bit and you're like, well, what can I make that's easy? What can I make that's cool? If you're into boho style, this takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think maybe 8 granny squares. And then you can add your optional fringe down here. So these are just a couple of styles that I had made last year that have just been sitting here. So we have those. Of course, I'm sure you know, you can make blankets, you can make rugs. Here's an example of a little small lap blanket, just using larger crochet or larger granny squares with different colors. You can also make things like this a little bit more intricate. Well, not that side, a little more intricate. This is a pillowcase. I have quite a collection of these. I did not make these. I do want to make sure I clarify that. I thrifted a collection of these that they had at the thrift store because they were just gorgeous. But this is just a different style of granny square with a flower in the center. And that's what it looks like in the back. And then you just slip your pillow in there. If you've worked with granny squares and you have a favorite project you've made, let us know. Put it in the comments. I want to know. Some others, and I know we're going to get to granny squares. I promise. I'm going to show you. So I made this little half granny square. This is a little neckerchief for the kiddo, for my dog. My dog is my kid. Here's a little fun design I made last year that I thought I was going to turn into something. My newest, I think, project that I'm in love with is this right here. This is my belt bag that I made that I carry with me. I have my little, folklore star on the back and then my little lover heart on the front. So this is my favorite everyday bag that I'm using. What else? I mean, little things. This was under a vase upstairs, and this is just made with, didn't have to do any color changes because I used one type of yarn that had a different, what do you call that? Different changing colors on it. So lots of things like that. Okay, let's talk about the granny square, and I already showed you this, so we'll move her out of the way. So let's talk about the granny square all-in-one yarn from Red Heart that just came out. So I have a few different examples. In fact, let me pick up my little thing here. So these are the 4 skeins or the 4 colorways that I ended up purchasing. They might have like 10, at least 10, I think, different colors. And so this is what happens, and it's a continuous skein. So you don't have to do color changes. And that's one of the biggest benefits. Are there cons? 100%. And we're going to talk about it. And I'm going to show you how I actually made this happen because it's not as easy as they make it seem. All right, and I have no idea how I did this. Well, we're just going to lay it down because apparently I don't know how that works. So anyway, I want to pause for a second, check in with the chat. Hello, Lara. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, everyone at the household. So what's up next on our list? We did what is a granny square, what you can make with a granny square. We also are going to talk about other things you can make. But, once you have your granny squares, you're like, what am I going to do with them all? Make overalls, make pants. I want to make a wrap dress. So there's so many different things that we can make. So now we're going to dive into how to make a basic granny square. The colors that I'm going to choose, I have everything ready. I was really prepared today. This is not normal. I don't know why I even went on time. I don't know. The world is weird today. So here are the 4 colors. This is what they look like in their skeins. And I am going to show you how we're going to do that. But I also want to show you the type of granny square that I'm going to use. So, for example, with each of these skeins, okay, this is what it looks like if you're wondering here. I think it's backwards, sorry. But it does say granny square all in one. When you take the label off, the label actually has the pattern it suggests you use to get it to work. Take that off here. And it's very tiny. Okay, it's very tiny. It looks just like this. You do have a pattern down here. This is the pattern. If you read patterns, this is what they want you to use. I tried using that and I did not like it. It is not my favorite type of granny square. I feel like the spacing is off. It's also a little bit more complicated. I prefer to use the reverse method, which is what I think this crocheter ended up doing. And you can tell because it ends up having a couple of like ridges, which I like. I think it gives it character. So you can use the pattern that's on the back, but what they don't tell you is certain rows you have to have a little bit lighter tensions, other rows you have to have tighter tension. So let's just dive into this. I was going to show you a granny square without this, but there's been such a demand for this. Why don't we do this? In fact, let's see what colorway do we want to do? Let's try, we'll use this one. This is one of my favorites. Now, if you've worked with self-striping yarn or the type of yarn that does patterns, I can't get those to work, okay? I really tried. So there's certain yarns that will create, patterns, will create designs on them. And there's certain things you have to do to get them to work. So when I first started with this yarn, I cut off the first color because I thought, oh, I need to have a fresh start. No, don't do that. Don't cut off anything with this yarn. You need every single inch most of the time for this type of yarn. Now, Drawbacks. Drawbacks to this yarn, you can't change the colors. These are your colors, this is what you have, and you can't change the order of the colors because they are actually laid out perfectly so that they work in each of those rows. Now, do they work perfectly? No, but that is the intention. So for this colorway here, in fact, I don't know why I'm showing you the package. I have the squares. I already showed you this one. I really like this one. I like this combination of colors here. So we have this, but you can change it. So typically with granny squares, you would coordinate them. So you might have like the navy out here, this turquoise in the center. So you might move colors around. You cannot do that with this. But what I will tell you, because this is Red Heart yarn, you could actually find the coordinating colors of Red Heart yarn, and you could create your own granny squares that are coordinating to this. So keep that in mind. If you are just like, well, I don't like any of those color combinations the way that this is, you can adjust that. Again, more work because you don't have an all-in-one. But I think honestly, in my opinion, making the granny squares without this yarn is actually faster. It is. It is. Okay, so I said that I was going to do this color, but maybe we want to do this color because you know, we're in February. It's my birthday month. It's my birthday month, so I am doing all things red and pink and hearts, all that stuff, which is not anything new. But yeah, let's go with this color. We'll go with this color here. So let me find that skein. Oh, that one's already ripped off. Don't worry, we'll get a better look here. You won't have to stare at me much longer. Okay, yarn out of the way. So this is the color skein we are going to use. And like I said, I'm going to show you how to do this with my preferred method of creating a granny square, the reverse method, and we will get a close-up, so I'll show you that. All right, let me put this down. We'll get resituated, checking in with the chat, saying hello. Hello, Sunday Fun Day. Okay. Now this is where things get a little interesting, as you know, because I need to reverse. Maybe if I can figure it out, which I never can. Nope. Done. There it is. Technology. Okay, so here we are. Now we're going to get into actually how to make the granny squares. I have my notes because there are definitely notes involved in this. Moving stuff out of the way so I can bring my chair over. Dun, dun, dun. Now, the reason I also chose this pink square right here was because I did pick out some coordinating yarn that I'm considering making my own granny square to coordinate with this. I was going to go to Joann and I was going to purchase more yarn, but guess what? I didn't because I have a huge yarn stash and I did not need to go buy new yarn. So we have some here. I can make my own that coordinate pretty well. And I think I want to make either a wrap top with these squares. I think that's what I'm going to do. I was going to make a wrap dress, but I don't tend to wear a lot of dresses. So I think we're just going to be focusing on turning these into a top. Now, okay, a couple things I want to point out with this one in particular. Because you have these color changes in the skein, you're going to find that a lot of times you'll have some discoloration. Now, I know not everyone is going to get that. I've seen, I only watched one video with someone showing how to do it. Mikey with the Crochet Club. I think that's the video. I watched like the first 10 minutes of it. And I don't think that they had this happening. And as I worked through other, like this one, for example, this one turned out very, very perfect. So it really just depends on, you know, how frustrated you get because you will get frustrated. It's not easy. So with that said, okay. First thing we want to talk about with this yarn. As I mentioned, you cannot change the colors. So these are the orders that they're in. The order that we start with is the purple. It is a self, you can, with all of these skeins, I found that the center pole was easy to get to. So that was nice. Okay, so the next question is, all right, well, what size, right? Like what size hook are you going to use? And typically, move this over here. I realized I did have a playlist to play, but I don't think you'll be able to hear me. So I'm just putting this right over here. Hello, hello. All right, so the package says it recommends a 4.5. Okay, I have a 4.5, I have a 5, and I have a 6. From all of the squares that I made notes for me. You can see up here, again, not very legible, but what I was doing is I was starting with a magic ring, but then I had to actually leave a 13-inch tail on the first round. And I'm still doing that because for some reason my tension is insane compared to what they get, because I also have to use a 6mm hook and they recommend a 4.5. And they don't need to leave this 13 inches at the very beginning. So if you're struggling on that first square, that's the one that's really going to cause the biggest frustration, because you won't be able to go any further until you get that one done. So let me show you a couple of tips there. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so where's our yarn? Here we are. And as I said at the beginning, I am not an expert crocheter. I am an intermediate, I would say. So if you have tips and tricks, things that you do, or if you have a preferred method, by all means share those in the chat. This is a place of learning and sharing so that we can all enjoy the art of crafting. That's what it's about. It's not being better than others. It's literally enjoying the art of crafting. Okay, so I am going to start this first row. My notes just say, I started at 13 inches, I chain 4, and then I slip stitch. So whether you want to do a magic ring or you do want to chain 4 and create the center, that is completely up to you. I really love a magic ring, okay? I'm a magic ring kind of, magic ring kind of girl. In fact, you can't even see what I'm doing, I realized. Here, let's move this over here. Are you better? There we go. Okay, much better. Now I can scoot over. It's probably a little easier. There we go. Okay, much clearer. So we're going to do this method without the magic ring because that's the most common way that folks tend to crochet. So that's what we will do. As I said, I leave a pretty long tail. So I just have this here just to show you my little tape measure or my little ruler. So I'm just going to do a loose 12 inches. Okay, we're just going to start with 12 inches. And then I'm going to take my 6mm hook because, again, the way that my tension is, I mean, and I've made this loose. I felt like the tension was so loose, but I found that this particular one works for me. That does not mean this will work for you. Remember, the instructions say 4.5, and I've heard other folks say 4.5 works just fine for them. So it's just a matter of getting comfortable. Once you do your first square, you'll have more of a kind of an understanding of what works for you. Okay, so we're just going to make a slip knot here. In fact, I'll show you if you're not familiar with a slip knot. Hopefully makes sense. But we had that 12-inch tail that we left. I'm just going to wrap it around these 2 fingers. So I end up with 2 little strands right here. And then I just take my hook under and pull it. Then I tighten it up. Okay, so I'm just making that slip knot here, and then we're going to chain 4. And again, I'm going to have really loose tension because what I kept finding is that my tension was too tight, even with this 6mm hook. So we're just going to chain 1, we're going to chain 2, 3, come on over, and 4. Okay, and then we are going to come over here and slip stitch. So we're going to put our needle back into the first loop. And we are going to pull all that through.
You have a person just starting to crochet said, do you have any tips?
Thank you. So crochet is amazing. It is amazing. I love it. My tips are play with it. Really play around with getting to know those different stitches. You'll find that there are some stitches that you feel really, really comfortable with and other stitches that may be a little more challenging. So start with granny squares. I don't know if anyone out there watches Elise Myers at all. She's one of my favorite online personalities. She got into crocheting and she's adorable, and she is a great content creator. And so she did a whole thing about, you know, if you're just starting out, if you have ADHD, or if you have a problem, not problem, but if you have a challenge with, you know, certain crafts, specifically with crochet, start with granny squares. And I 100% support that. I did not start with granny squares. I dove right in and started with amigurumi. That was a challenge. So I would say biggest tip, start with your granny squares, and I would not use this yarn. If you were just starting out, using this granny square all-in-one is going to be, it's just going to drive you insane, and you're going to want to throw it. So I wouldn't say use this yarn, but definitely play around with different stitches, and start with those granny squares, and then also read patterns. Teach yourself to read patterns. Watch YouTube videos. Again, I don't have a lot of content on crocheting just because it's something that I do for fun. It's something I do for like recreation, but I don't do a lot of content creation on it. But there are tons of makers out there that have really great videos. So just, you have to do a lot of it. All right, so we just made our little circle down here. Now, very important to keep in mind, when we are working into this circle, we're not working over here in this left. Okay, that's the center of that first stitch. We need to just take it between our fingers and wiggle it around, and you'll find that little hole there. Okay, so that's what we're going to be working into. And for your granny square, again, we're using my preferred method, but I do want to use the chain 4 method just because it's a little bit easier when we're starting out. So what a granny square consists of essentially are 3 stitches, clusters, okay, that's what they're called, so clusters, and then you have a chain space, which makes the corner. You have 3 of the same cluster, chain space, you have the cluster, chain space, so it looks like that. Then when you get to the next row, now you're doing the same thing. We have our 3, we have our cluster, we have our corner, cluster, chain space. And so you're just repeating this pattern. And this is why this is a really good project if you're just starting out with crochet. So that, with that said, the stitches that we're going to be using is, excuse me, we're going to be using double crochet, US terminology, double crochet. There is a difference. So again, if you're just starting out, be mindful. There's tons of resources out there. I think I have a subscription to a crochet magazine, and it is in the UK. So just being mindful that there are, you know, there's different ways that they're referred to. So just be aware of that. Now we are going to do chain 3 right now because we are going to start this cluster. So again, I'm going to do this loosely because this may not work. It hasn't worked the first time at all for me. So we're just going to do yarn over chain 1, yarn over chain 2, and yarn over chain 3. So that's going to be the first, okay, the first part of our, well, let me show you here, the first part of our first cluster. Then we are going to yarn over, find that little hole in the center, and then we're gonna do a double crochet. Make sure I have the right yarn here. Okay, so see how that's starting to take shape? Then we're gonna again yarn over, go into that same chain space, or that same hole. Is this on camera? No, I'm barely even, sorry everybody. Need to be mindful of that. So this is our first cluster. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, that's our first cluster. Now, typically I only do 2 chains between my clusters, or I usually don't use chains. Let me clarify. So to create your corner space, you do need to have a chain. Typically, I use 2 chains, but for this particular yarn, I'm using 3 because, like I said, I have a hard time getting this to work out the way I want it to, so I altered it just so that I can try to get this yarn to match up. All right, so then that means I'm going to do yarn over and chain 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to do 3 more half double crochets. And again, this tension is so loose and it feels so odd to me. Oops. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to do our last stitch here. There we go. Okay. Then once again, we're going to chain 3. So you can see as you start to work with this yarn, this is where the color change is going to happen. And we have this much yarn right now, this much yarn between where the color changes and what we're working on. So this is what you want to be mindful of with this particular yarn. You will either have to make your tension tighter, switch your hook to maybe a smaller hook or larger hook, depending on if you have yarn left over or not. There's a lot of adjusting that's involved. I will tell you, just looking at how much yarn is left, I don't think this is going to be a perfect match this first time around, but that's actually good because that's probably what's going to happen. Okay, so now we're going to chain 3, and I am tightening my tension on these chains just because I keep thinking I have too loose of tension. So now we're going to make another. Oh, and one other thing I do want to point out, the tail that we have right here, this is the tail from that original 4 chain that we did at the beginning. We are just going to be stitching over this, and that way it'll be hidden in the work, and then it makes less work trying to weave it in at the end. So that's, just be mindful of that. If you're not comfortable with that, you could leave it out and just stitch it in. The whole point though of this all-in-one granny square yarn is that you don't have to do all the color changes and put in and stitch back in all of the yarn changes. But like I said at the beginning, I think it's actually faster to do color changes with granny squares than use this yarn, but that's just me. So where were we? We just did our chain 3. Now we're going to do another cluster of double crochets. And I know all of my crocheters that have been doing this for a long time are probably looking at my hand saying, she does this so weird. I know I do. It's just something, I just can't do this over here on my hand. I can't pull the tension like this. For some reason, I've tried the ring, I've tried wrapping around my hand. It's just easier for me. And I don't know if it's just because I'm so used to holding on to the thread when I sew, or holding onto the thread when I use the knitting machine, but I just don't, is not something that I tend to do, but you might find that helpful. Okay, so where are we? 1, 2, 3. And we are definitely not going to have enough, I can tell you right now. So instead of wasting time and finishing that, in fact, I'll show you because, again, great learning opportunity. But if I chain 3 right now, we're going to be almost at the color change, and we still need to do 1 more cluster. So we certainly do not have enough. With the other skein, with one of the other skeins, this skein right here, okay, this method that I have my notes on works perfectly. If I leave a chain of 13 inches, or 12 to 13 inches, and I do the chain 4, I can get this first cluster to work out almost every single time. So these yarns I feel like should be very similar, but they're not. So I'm trying to work on one at a time. So what we can do, okay, since we don't have, and again, this is a great chance to show you what my brain is going to do. So since I don't have enough yarn right here, I know that I either need to tighten my tension, I need to not leave as much of a tail right here, or, okay, I need to change to a smaller yarn hook. All of those are options, whichever is most comfortable for you. Since I know that I do not have enough yarn to even like get close, I'm going to actually pull out the whole thing. This is why yarn is so fun, everybody, because you can make a mistake, or in this case, it's not really a mistake, it's just getting used to it. Undo it and then start over. So instead of leaving 12 inches, let's just do whatever that is. Whatever that is. We'll do like 9. Okay. And then one, oh, nope, not doing a magic ring. I'm just so programmed in my head to do a magic ring. All right, so again, slip knot. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think I realized what my main issue was is that I haven't been doing this method. I've been doing the magic ring, and it takes less yarn for magic ring. All right, so let's just go with this one. Chain 3. Tightening up my tension just a little bit, but I don't think that I need to size down. Okay, so I'm just doing my clusters. I'm doing them quickly now that I've gone through one time. We'll see how we get. So this yarn is definitely not for everybody. Like I mentioned, I wouldn't, you know, if I was going on a long yarn, oh wow, a long trip in the car or in the plane, yeah, I would probably get a couple of skeins of this because it's just a little bit easier than bringing like 6 skeins of yarn. But it's not something that I would be my primary go-to for my granny squares. Okay, so here's where we are now. This is where we were before, where we unraveled. So we have our 3 clusters here. We do need to make 1 more cluster and a chain 3. Looking at this, just because I've done it so much, I'm going to size down my hook because I don't think I have quite enough, but I might have enough if I chain down or I size down to a 4.5. Again, that is what they recommend you use. 1, 2, 3. Still might not have enough, but we will go for it. And we're not going to have enough. Again, this is the biggest frustration with this yarn. So what I'm going to do now, though, I'm not going to start all the way over. I feel like I just need, so I did 2 stitches here. I need 1 more stitch and 3 chains, and I wasn't doing the tightest tension. So I feel like if I come down to about here and unravel it, and then go back with using the 4.5, I should be able to get where we need to go. So again, if you're curious about this yarn, thinking, should you buy it? Just keep in mind, you'll be doing a lot of this. Okay, so I'm tightening up my tension using a smaller hook on just that last, or that 3rd set of clusters. Oh yeah, my tension, I'm going really tight on my tension here. Okay, so now we have a lot yet left. That should work out. Oops, except when I yank it out. Ta-da. And still not quite enough. Because we should not have this little color change right here, even though it's not exactly the hot pink or the purple, this should come into your chain on the very last chain. We don't want to see this right now. We definitely want this to be a little bit further. So with that said, again, we're very close though. We're very close on this round. So I probably am going to go back to this cluster here. And what this is telling me is this for particular colorway, I need to use a little bit tighter tension. I'm not going to go, actually, why don't we go all the way back? We'll start there. So like tonight, if anyone's watching the Grammys and you want to play around with some granny square yarn, and that probably would be a good relaxing thing. Oh, I need to put, I have a music list. Okay, so I know I've talked about this in the past during lives. The silence drives me crazy. It really does. But I found a playlist that says it's okay to play during a live without getting like in trouble. So we will see. I'll put that on here in a second. But right now I'm focused on getting this first round done. Round 1, once we get through round 1, it gets so much easier. Has anyone else used this yarn? Have you played with it yet? I've had a few people reach out to me that they wanted to throw it across the room. Totally get that. Totally get it. Right? Okay, exactly. So just it's granny squares in general, if you're brand new and you're just trying to get the hang of it, can be frustrating. And then you throw into the mix trying to get it to line up perfectly. Oh, I hear you. I 100% hear you. That's why I'm doing this method that, well, and I'm not even able to really show you the method because we keep getting not the right thing. So I think that we're pretty darn close though. I just finished this cluster and now I just need to do a chain 3 and then we're going to close off the round. So for me, I think this is enough to do a chain 3. I'm going to leave it with this hook here and I'm going to do chain 1. And even though it's in this darker color, that's like the color change. So it's okay to me. In fact, this is what I mentioned here. At a point I just get to where I'm like, you know what, it's fine. It's fine. This is for me. It doesn't bother me that much. Okay, so then we're going to chain 2, chain 3. And then the other thing to keep in mind, even though there's a slight color change here, you're going to be putting a cluster over it. So, right? So think about this. So on this one, I started it a little too early. I think this is one of the first ones that I did. So here, if I would have actually not changed the color until a little bit later, it would have been hidden by, oh wait, I'm down here. Well, it would have been hidden by this next chain, okay? So now we are going to close up this round. This again, different for everybody. I have seen some people like to slip stitch in between this chain space. I do not like to do that because I want it to be just for me, how I learned. So I'm just going to find 1, 2, 3. This is the 3rd stitch. So that's the 3rd stitch on that first round, that first chain we did. And so I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to use it as a hook, which is what it's intended. So I can pick up this loop right here. Okay. And then I'm going to come to this side. Okay. And that's the stitch that I'm going to slip stitch into. So I'm going to take that, pull it through. There we go. And voila. Okay, that's our, whew, do you see how long that took? Do you see how long that took to do that one square? Okay, I'm gonna show you in comparison. So now we're gonna do a comparison. Let's see, what color do you want to start with? This color is purple. We're gonna do our own. So this, because especially if those of you that are just starting off with granny squares and this yarn is gonna be frustrating, I wanna show you, okay, how easy it is without using this yarn. And hello everybody, welcome. Okay, so I'm gonna start and I'm just gonna do this in the method that I would typically do for a granny square. So I'm going to create a magic ring. You do not have to do a magic ring. If you prefer doing the chain 4 method, by all means, go for that. In fact, I'm gonna ask everybody out there, Grandma Boomer content. Yes, I am here for it. Grandma core all day long. So what would you prefer? Would you rather me do a magic ring or would you like me to do the chain 4 method? I'm gonna let you decide because this is for you. Oh, hey Shay Shay, I love that idea. Different items, practicing different stitches. That's such a helpful tip. Chain 4. Okay, chain 4 it is. So we are just going to leave a little bit of tail. Again, because we're not trying to meet, right, a yarn color change, we can use whatever size we want. I could, if I wanted to continue to use a 6, I could. I typically use a 5mm. That's my go-to. In fact, my favorite, where is my favorite? Here. This is my favorite crochet hook. I do not spend a lot of money on crochet hooks. I feel like these are all cheap hooks that I've had forever and ever, but I really like them. If you are new to crochet, one thing to keep in mind, they do have different style of hooks. So play around, see which works best for you. I don't remember the names. Again, I know that they're different and I've read it, but my ADHD brain could not tell you. But I think it's like a Boyles and they have different names, but play around with them. This one I really like because the way that it's shaped, it seems to work easier for me. But I want to use the same one that I'm using for this one, just again for a better demo. So we are going to create a slip stitch, or slip knot, not slip stitch. So we're just going to take that yarn, wrap it around, come up, slip it through. That's the same exact method, by the way, that I use for a magic ring. So if you're struggling with magic ring, you could typically do that same method. So now I'm just gonna pull that to tighten, just like that. And now we're gonna chain 4, 2, 3, 4. And again, I'm trying to mirror what I'm doing on here, so I'm gonna leave my tension looser than I typically would. So now that we've chained 4, we're just gonna take our hook here, we're gonna go back into the center of that stitch, pull the yarn over, hopefully you can see this, and then we're just gonna slip stitch the circle together. So that's the first part. So then we're gonna start our first cluster, which is gonna be chain 3. So there's 1, 2, 3. So we just chained 3, and that's gonna be the first part of our cluster. And then we're gonna do 2, okay, double crochet. I love double crochet. I think my favorite stitch though is a half double crochet because you do get a little bit more height than a single crochet, but it does go pretty quickly. But double crochet is what I typically use for this. I think a lot of people do. So we are just going to yarn over, and then once again, find the center. And I was a little too loose there. It'll be hidden though. So we're gonna find the center here, and we're gonna take our hook through the center, pull our yarn through the center, and then we're gonna complete that double crochet. And then we're gonna do that one more time. And then we're gonna chain 3. And then we're gonna create another cluster, which are 3 double crochets. Again, keeping that tail, try to stitch over it. Then chain 3. Create another cluster. So you want 4 clusters, okay? Those are gonna be, that's how we start this granny square, with 4 clusters. Okay, chain 3. And then we're on our last cluster. Okay, chain 3. And then we're gonna, to end the row, we're gonna come over here, and again, we're gonna slip stitch in that 3rd stitch. So 1, 2, 3, get it so I can see it up here. So I'm gonna go in here. And again, if it's easier for you to go between the stitches, I know some people like to do that. I just prefer coming up to the top, which is not that. Probably should get a different hook to do. There we go, perfect. Not perfect, doesn't have to be perfect. I am trying to get the word perfect out of my vocabulary. Does not have to be perfect, it just has to be, you just have to have fun. And then there we go. Now we're going to slip stitch to close. So as you can see, doing just the initial round for a regular granny squitch can go pretty quickly, okay? Because you're not trying to line everything up. So this is where, again, my personal opinion is this all-in-one yarn is great if you just want to have something all in one. There are uses for it, but making your own granny square, I think, is still the best, and it's still the best option. You can be more creative as well. Okay, so now that we have shown the difference between how quickly you can actually do a granny square yourself without the yarn, we're gonna go back to round 2 of our granny square all-in-one yarn. And I am gonna put on that little mix just in the background, just as like a light hum. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. And just a heads up for everybody, the Anchor 24 is our mod. They will be keeping an eye on things. This channel is very family friendly. Just want to make sure we throw that out there. It's also a positive environment. So we kind of have very high standards for the chat. So thank you everyone for all of your great comments. Just want to let everyone know this is a safe space. Oh, and I just realized I can't play the music because if I play the music, you'll be able to hear me talking on the other side. So let's dive in to the next round. Now, my notes for round 2 on this yarn is again using the 6mm with loose tension. That's all I have for my notes here. So we are going to switch to this. Here we go. And then we are once again just going to start the round. Oh, no, I'm going to tell you because this is where things are different because I use the reverse granny square method, which I have found to be way easier. So some folks, when they are working on granny squares, work, and what I'm trying to say when I've heard it referred to as reverse, which is why I use that. But a lot of folks just have the granny square facing the same direction, and then they work their clusters every round the same way. I flip back and forth. And the reason for that is I don't like the way it looks when you have it just facing you because we've already done, I think this is our first, is that a first chain? Hold on. No, that was just our slip stitch. So I'm going to chain 1 and show you what I mean. So there's chain 1 and then I'm going to turn it. Okay, so I chained 1 and I'm going to turn it because now we are right in that cluster or in that chain space. We don't have to do any, finagling with trying to figure out where we're going to put this yarn. Our chain space is already here. So I'm going to continue by doing 1, 2, well, that's 2 and that's 3. So that's our third chain right there. And now we're going to do the exact same thing that we did to that first spot here. We're going to do a cluster of 3, chain 3 for the corner, and then a cluster of 3. And we're going to do that all the way around. Remember, if you were using your own yarn, this would be so much easier because then you don't have to try to meet. Let me pull out this yarn so I can show you where the color changes. Here we are. Because then you don't have to meet this color change, okay? But because we're using this yarn, we do. All right, so we're gonna take a moment. Let me get this out of here. And blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. And I have another computer over here. Let's see if I can put on my music through this computer while I'm grabbing a little drink. Hopefully everyone's having a fun Sunday. It's dark and rainy here. We are in the Pacific Northwest and we're having an atmospheric river. Not as bad as California, I've heard, but it's been very, very wet and rainy. Let's see. Non-DMCA. That's what I want. Non-DMCA. Let's put that on. See what. There we go. Now we have a little background noise. If it gets too loud, let me know. You may not even be able to hear it, but I just need, my ADHD brain needs something else happening at the same time. All right. So now we have our first, again, we're going to do 2 double crochets here. 1, 2. And I am, remember with this, because we're trying to reach that end without going over, it's kind of like yarn chicken, actually. So it's, maybe that's why I like it, because it does feel like a competition with myself. Because you don't know, are you going to get there in the end? Or is there going to be tons left over? We don't know. Because every time I do it, it's different, even though I've made plenty of notes. Okay. Yeah, it just feels like it's so loose to me, but every time I think it's too tight, it doesn't quite work. All right, now here's where things are a little bit different. Okay, so so now that we're on round 2, I typically with my granny squares do not put a chain 1 between my clusters, but again, because of this yarn, how much yarn is always left over, I've started doing that. So I'm just going to chain a loose chain here, chain 1, And now we're gonna go into the next corner space. So again, we're gonna do 3 double crochet, 3 chain, and then 3 double crochet. I don't know if anyone on here has seen Elise Meyer's tutorial on her daisy granny square. I just love her so much as a maker, and I just watched it last night just because it was so interesting, and flowers are my thing, and I cannot wait to make this daisy square granny square, because it's definitely a complicated, more advanced square, but it looks so cool. Okay, and then again, we're going to chain 1 before we go into the next cluster. And feel free, ask questions. Again, that's what this is here for. I'm just going through this quickly since we've already showed what this process is, but I am more than happy to answer any questions. See, I was a little tight on that tension. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. There we go. Okay, well, that was 1, 2, 3. Almost to the end. And again, you can kind of glance as you're going through this yarn to see how much you have left over. I'm still good. Oh, here's a little tip. This again, just for me, because my ADHD gets out of control and I'll totally forget what I was in the middle of. This is why I forget counts. This is also why granny squares are so awesome to me, because I can just look down and say, oh yeah, there's 3 stitches in this cluster. So it's really easy to keep track. But what I forget sometimes is if I chained at the end of my clusters. So I'm like, did I chain? Well, if you look at your last stitch and you see 2 yarn, like, what do you call that? 2 yarn loops right here, you didn't chain, because when you chain, it'll make it singular. So that is, and I don't know if that's a fact, but I have found with my brain, if I ever forget, which I do every single time, I just look and say, oh, there's 2 right there. I'm going to do my chain 1. Now that I do that, you can see it's only a single up here. So that, just a little tip from my brain to yours, if that helps at all. That way you don't have to unravel every time. Okay, so now this is where we want to be mindful, because we're on our last corner. So we're going to do 2 clusters and 3 chains. So this looks like it's going to be enough. Is it going to be too much? That's the question. This is where doing this a lot of times in a row, you can kind of eyeball it. But we're going to see, just doing what I've been doing. So we have 3, chain 1, 2, 3. So our next grouping, 2. Okay, I'm gonna stop for a second and see. I think we might be pretty good. One thing that happened to me this week was really interesting. Someone told me that I didn't create these squares from this yarn. They said it wasn't possible and I was lying. And I was like, one of the worst things I can be called is a liar, because with my brain, it just like, it doesn't compute. It doesn't compute. So I'm glad I'm able to recreate this. Okay, so now what we can see, right, here we are, we're at the end. There's too much yarn left over. Now it's not a lot, so we don't have to restart the whole thing, but what we'll need to do is you either need to tighten your tension, which I don't think will make the biggest difference here, or you're going to size down. So because, oh, actually, no, I'm totally lying to you, because in this case, I need to loosen the tension, because if you have yarn, a color left over, it means you were a little bit too tight. And I even mentioned that to you as I was doing some of the chains, that like you can tell this one, I was a little bit tighter. I can tell this cluster, these 2 clusters are tighter than this cluster over here. So I'm just going to loosen all this right here. And I'm going to come back in and do very loose tension, very loose. Like so much that I think it's wrong, but we're going to get it to work. Loose, Tori, loosed. Okay, maybe. Again, very loose. I think this is gonna work out. Okay, so now look it, we got there. We got there, yes. And this one, as you noticed, was a lot less complicated than the first one. Just the first one, the problem that I have is that how much yarn tail do you leave? Because even if I leave just the normal amount of like 4 inches or whatever, in my loosest tension, I can never get it to work. So with the second round, you notice we only had to adjust this corner over here, but you will be doing that throughout the project. So now we're gonna do one more chain, and I'm gonna make a really loose chain just to try to get through that color before the next round. Perfect, and look where we are. We are like almost perfectly lined up. So now we're gonna come back into the top of this chain 3. I can find that. It's always so hard to do this with this thick. Okay, in fact, I'm going to just switch to the smaller hook just so that I can get it to go in here. I probably should have my glasses on. Okay, there we go. Pull that through and slip stitch. Woohoo! Look at that, folks. We just got round 2 done. And even though some of this is going to be a little tighter than others, it all blocks out just fine. Again, I have I don't know, I probably have 10 of these done with the different skeins, and they all look pretty good. I haven't gone back and tightened that up or hidden any of those, but that one's pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second, say hello to everybody out there. And I am kind of doing 2 things in tandem if you're just popping in. So I'm demoing this granny square all-in-one yarn. So those of you that are just showing, are just here. So this granny square all-in-one yarn, I got 4 different skeins of it, and my overall impression, I would give it a 6. It has good benefits for certain things, but making your own granny squares, I think is the best thing. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to the other granny square that we're doing without the self-changing yarn. So this is why this yarn came about, because one of the biggest complaints with granny squares when you're switching colors is the annoyance of having to hide or stitch in all of your tails at the end. There are tips and tricks so that you don't have to do that. I mean, it can be as complicated or as easy as you want. And what I'll tell you is, in fact, let me just show you. If you're worried about how long it takes to hide your tails, you're doing something wrong. Because honestly, with these, so yeah, if you have 5 color changes, you're gonna have to go back and hide them, but you're just gonna like weave them in. Like that's it. I mean, I could just do this right now. With this one, I think I did use a chain 4, so it is already secure. I don't have to go back and tie a knot or anything like that. So all I'm going to do is hide it within the actual little clusters here, so it's not noticeable on the front or back. I go one direction. Once I'm secure there, I go back one time through the other direction. Make sure it's tight. Cut it off. Okay, so there, I just hit a tail. That took me a few seconds. Me trying to fix around to get it to work out takes minutes and minutes and minutes. So you decide what you like better. Some people just really hate hiding tails. I get it. All right, so we're gonna cut this yarn color because we're gonna switch to a new yarn color. Let's see. They used pink. The only pink I have a lot of, actually, I do have another pink. I have this sparkly pink. We're just gonna use sparkle pink, okay? I have a lot of this left over. I got this for a custom project, and I have still a lot left over. So, like I mentioned, there are a ton of different methods. You can use whichever works for you for color changes. I am not the expert, okay? I just wanna make sure we're clear. I just know what I find works for me. So we have this loop pulled up here. This was the end of our first round. So then I'm just gonna pull this all the way through, okay? Give it a tug and that tightens it up. Done. Dunzo, dunzo. So now we're gonna switch colors. But remember, I use a reverse method. That way I can just flip this around, okay? In fact, I could do it on this side and then flip it, but we are going to do a slip knot, okay? Slip knot through there. And then we are just going to add our color change. So when we do that, this yarn tail from the color change, we're going to be stitching over it so it'll be hidden. And yes, it's secure because we just tightened it up here. This is pretty much knotted in place. So if I stitch over this yarn tail, even just in the corner, it's going to be secure and I should be able to snap it off or snip it off without it coming unraveled. If you plan on using this for a garment, maybe it's something or a blanket and you're going to be washing it once a week or quite often, I always recommend hand washing handmade items, but I get it if you have something that needs to be utilitarian. I would actually consider double knotting this here so that it doesn't come undone before you go over with your corner piece, okay? But again, it's just a personal preference that I have. Thanks, guys, everybody. All right, so we're just gonna go right into our corner space here. We're going to keep both of those yarn tails, right? We're going to pull through and slip stitch. And we're going to do what we've already done. We're going to do chain 1, chain 2, chain 3. Then we're going to do 2 double crochets. We're keeping those tails right near the bottom so you can stitch over them. Okay, and then again, we're going to chain 3 and do 3 more double crochets over the yarn tails. Excellent. All right. Now we're just going to continue around the round. We're going to continue around for round 2. So we're going to chain 1, and then we're just going to keep going. 3 double crochet, 3 chain, 3 double crochet. And I'm trying to mirror the tension that I use on the other all-in-one yarn, which is hard. It's hard for me to do loose tension. I think I'm so tightly wound anyway as a person, so trying to loosen my yarn should be taking that into my own personal brain. And thanks everyone for spending Sunday with me. I think this might be the day that we see more lives happening. It just seems like a good day for me. I'm usually refreshed. If I have a migraine or anything, which I do get often, usually Sundays, hopefully I've recovered. And then the more you practice, again, the faster that you'll get, but it's not a race. It does feel good though when you start to get a rhythm, because you're like, oh yeah, I'm making progress. It's great. Now, my other crocheters out there, what method do you use for granny square? Do you have a specific pattern that you have found works best for you? You know, someone mentioned that they had found frustration with starting with granny squares anyway, and I had the same thing. I want to be totally honest. When I first started learning granny squares, for some reason, the one pattern that I was using was just, I could never get it to line up correctly. It just frustrated me to no end. And once I found this method, it was a game changer. So now we're just going to slip stitch in there. Come on. There we go. And there's round 2. So see how much faster it is to do it yourself. And again, if the only reason that you are getting this is so you don't have to weave in your ends, I mean, these are already weaved in. I just have to snip them now. That's it. So I don't know if that's a good enough reason. Also, I didn't tell you, this all-in-one yarn retails for $10. I can get 5 skeins of coordinating colors for probably $2.49 a piece. So like $10. I could get 5 different skeins, and then you could create your own patterns with this. So monetarily, if you can find this on sale, I did get it on sale for $6.99, but still for me, that's insane. Unless you're supporting a small, yarn business that dyes their own yarn, which you should definitely spend like even $25 on a skein of yarn. Okay, that's different. But if you're supporting a big box store, yeah, you don't want to give them all your money. Okay, so now we're coming back to our all-in-one yarn. Yes, I love the idea of those one big granny squares, because then you get this rhythm. It's so satisfying, and it just continues to build and build. I love those ideas. This is one I showed at the beginning of the live. This I started off just playing around with this yarn that I got that was too thick for the knitting machine, and I loved how it looked. So I just turned it into I think I have our key bowl on top of it, and it just looks cool. And then you just finish it off with like a scalloped edge or something, and then if you just kept going, you're right, it could be just like a nice snuggly blanket. So love those ideas. Okay, let's go back. Round 3 with our all-in-one yarn. So round 3, my notes say start with 6, change to 5 on the last row. Okay, those are what my notes told me. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to start the new round by chaining 1, turning. Okay, so now again, we're back here in the chain space, but we're going to chain 2 more so that we get a chain 3. And instead of doing 6 and switching to a 5 hook on the last row, let's just try using the 6, but maybe tightening up the tension a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna go with that. So we're just going to go back down. And this row is a little bit different because, let me show you, after we do this first cluster, I just love the word cluster. So after we do our first cluster, we're not creating a corner here. So now we're getting into a pattern where in the center of your square, you're going to start just doing those 3 clusters. And then when you get to the corner, you'll create the corner space. So again, I was just talking. I forgot if I did a chain 1 or not. There's 2 bars right here. I did not chain 1. So now we're going to chain 1. And again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining and keeping me company. The hubs, the Anchor 24 is in there, being an awesome moderator. Thank you. And now we're in our corner space over here. Again, I'm tightening up the tension. We just don't know. Is it going to work? Is it going to be too much yarn? Too little? Great question. Now, I wonder if there is not a music station that I can play. I'm just searching really fast. DMCA classical. Just looking for music I can put on. I know probably no one cares, but okay. There's just some background. So it just says that it's lo-fi. We'll go lo-fi. Okay. And chain 1. And now again, we're in the center. Okay, so we're not creating a corner. So we're just going to do 3 double crochets to create that cluster. Okay, now we're in the corner. I do love the color story of this yarn though, and that's why I was able to find some similar in my stash, not quite the same. I don't think I have very much Red Heart because it doesn't work very well on the knitting machine, but I did have some colors that I think are at least coordinating. Ooh, that one's a little tight tension. We'll see how that impacts. One more. Okay, I'm just pulling this yarn out. Here we go. See, and this is the other frustrating thing about this yarn. So you're paying $10 for these like specific color changes, but then the way that the yarn dyes, it always has these little specks, and you'll find throughout the yarn as well some of those imperfections. Like here, okay, so see how on this one, the red came through on the whatever color this is. I think this is like a light pink or something, but it came through. I mean, those are imperfections, but you know, at least there's nothing wrong with imperfections, but for $10, I would think this would be a little cleaner. That's just my thoughts. And has anyone else had a chance to play with this yarn yet? Yes. Oh my God. Yes. It is. It's like if I don't have something going, all of a sudden there's something else happening in my head. There's like all the voices, not those kind of voices, but the voices. I just start getting lost in my own thoughts. And yeah, the hubs just said we have to sleep with a fan on because if not, I won't fall asleep. Even when we go in the summer, we go to a cabin, which is amazing. It's in the middle of nowhere. You know, in the national forest, there's nothing around. If you open the windows, you hear the birds and the creek, or the creek. And I still have to have a fan on. I just can't, my brain. Sometimes the fan, I'll start to hear weird things in the fan though, or in the white noise. Okay, let's take a look how much yarn we have. Okay, I always like to start evaluating on that last row if I need to tighten up or not. Remember, my notes said that I should switch to a 5 on this row, but I'm trying to stay away from using the 5 hook on this because I don't want to have to, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter, 3 hooks compared to 2, but, right, did I? No. Okay, so now we're coming up on that last, I think we're gonna have too much left over, so I'm gonna get looser. Get loose. See, I don't know where that just came from. No idea. Loosen that up a little bit, and then I'll reevaluate. I probably shouldn't have loosened it up. Oh, actually no, because we only have 3 more double crochets, and oh no, we have chain 3 and 3 double crochets. May not be enough, so I'm gonna tighten it up now. So we'll do 1, 2, 3. The goal is to have to not undo rows every single time. Where are we? Oh, I don't even think I had to go that tight. Oh, if we get this row right on the first try, everybody, that is like, I think that deserves a standing ovation. Look at that. We got this row on the first try. Okay, yes, I'm happy with that. That is satisfying. So now we did the 3rd row. I did a 6 hook, and then I did a little bit looser tension than I did on the first 2 rounds. And then I just tightened it up here in the corner when I saw how much I had left. Slip stitch. Bloop. There we go. There's round 3. See, now that, if it was just like this, if it worked out that easily, excellent. I would be very pleased, but it does not. And then again, see that color change right there? Annoying, annoying, annoying. All right, let's add our third color to the one we are making without the special yarn. Let's see, what color did they use? They used a turquoise. I have a turquoise right here. Let's use this. So once again, we're just gonna snip. And where's my center pull? Oh, done. Oh no, this one is a mess. I probably shouldn't have chosen this one. I don't know why this is a mess.
She wants to know if the packaging tells you how many squares you can get out of that scheme.
I think it says 14. What does it say? No, that's a great question. I don't know if I heard that from someone else that they said 14. Oh yeah, see, it does say 1 skein equals 14 squares. But I've seen others say you can get more. I don't think that's true. I mean, if this is measured out completely, yeah, so they say 14. So I'm going to say 14 if we're going by this, which 14 is enough to do so many things. Not a blanket, probably not a full blanket, but certainly you could make those little boho tops. Okay, let me figure out what I did with this yarn, y'all. Sorry about that. Trying to do a shortcut. I'm probably gonna totally mess this up, but there's my center pole. Come here. Oh, you know what I want to do too? I want to plug in my phone. There we go. Okay, good. I had 33% battery left. That's actually pretty darn good, surprisingly. Okay, where's center pole? Let's be gentle with this. No knots. No knots. No knots. Okay, wonderful. And then you are just the... Excellent. Okay, now we have our next color. So our next round 3. Like I showed you before, if you're not using the Granny Square all-in-one yarn, you're just going to pull that yarn tail through, give it a tug to tighten it up. We're going to flip to the other side and use our 6mm hook. So we're doing a slip stitch. And this time we are starting, oh my gosh, brain, here we go. We're starting in this cluster. And the reason I'm starting here instead of like on the end or anything is that way we can take those yarn tails and hide them at least a little bit in this, in the cluster. So we're gonna yarn over. Where's that other tail? There it is, okay. Come on, tighten up. And slip stitch through, tighten that. Beautiful. All right, and then we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And making sure that those tails are getting covered up. Man, okay, that tension is way too tight. We're going to redo that one. Okay, and then we just move those tails out of the way. Chain 1, and now we're back. Now we're back in action. I would really, my goal is I want to make 1, 2, 3, a wrap dress. So I've seen some really pretty wrap dresses showing up in my feed. So I want to take that idea and go with it. I kind of want to make the little girl dress I made, the little kiddo dress I made that I'm sending out this week. I really think I should make that for me as an adult. It just has a granny square heart center, and then it has a knitting machine skirt, because that was easy, pretty easy to do, and it's really cute. So I think there's that too. But with granny squares, I think that if I want to make a wrap dress, I probably need, I'm gonna say at least 30. And they all have to coordinate. You don't want to put, you know, I don't want to put something like this with black and navy. or burgundy. It just wouldn't work. What did I do with my wrist? I just twisted my wrist somehow. Come on. Nope. And then I just twisted that chain and I don't want it twisted. So I'm actually just gonna pull it back a little. And then go back. So hopefully this is helpful for some of you out there. I know some of you are probably experts in crochet, but it's just fun. It's just fun, enjoyable. And especially for my fellow neurodivergent folks out there, you get a nice little check mark. So every time you do one, it's a task complete. Now, whether you put them together and create something, that's a totally separate task. But creating a granny square and finishing a granny square is something that you can celebrate. So if you're getting in this mindset, so again, this is absolutely important for mental health. If you're getting into this mindset where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm failing at everything right now, I'm not getting anything done, I'm overwhelmed, maybe you have task paralysis, you know, just do a granny square. Pull out a granny square, whip it out really fast. It just makes a huge difference for me and how my brain is working, and it resets. So the mental benefits of crochet, and specifically granny square, is infinite. It's probably why I like the knitting machine so much too, because you can get a project done very quickly and then have something complete. But again, then you might end up with an entire room full of completed projects that are just sitting there that you should either give away or sell. That's where I am. Lots of finished projects. And chain one. And we're back to the beginning. Interesting. This morning was interesting on Instagram. Lion Brand Yarn shared one of my posts, which is kind of a cool thing. I had made this knitting machine hexapuff rug for my puppy, and they shared it. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so there is our round 3, doing our own squares. So again, comparing these two, this is the all-in-one. And now we're back for our next round of all-in-one. So the next round is going to be this pink round, and this is round 4, and my notes just say 6mm. That's all my notes say, which means that I must have had success on the 4th round without having to do a lot of adjusting. So we will chain 1 with the new color, turn it, and chain 2 more. Again, I'm using the I think it's called reverse method. Okay, so see, this is what annoys me about this yarn. Because of how this is, what I should do. Okay, I'm going to tell you what I should do. I should go back to this previous round and I should loosen it up a little bit more so that this error in the yarn, which it is, so that this is up here, and then that way I can cover it up with the cluster. So that's what I should do, but honestly, it's not really going to bother me. And because I'm using this for myself and I'm not making this for someone else, the amount of work that it's going to take to keep unraveling and try to figure it out, I'm just, no, not going to happen. So we're just going to continue this round. Do I hate it? Do I really hate it? Let me see what it looks like. It's fine. Ugh. Oh my goodness. Didn't I go really loose on this one? If I remember. I think I already went really loose. I don't think I can go any looser without it looking odd. Okay, we're just going to keep going. And those are some of the important decisions you'll need to make when you're working with this yarn. How much do you want to keep frogging and restarting? So again, I am trying to do standard tension with this. I'm not doing, I mean, I'm doing loose for me, but I feel like if my notes just say 6 millimeter, let's just go for it. And it does. It can take a while. And the reason that I will tell you that it seems like I'm going so fast is because I've made a bunch of them, and it really took practice. But honestly, it took me a while. I think there was a whole road trip. We were driving. Like I said, we go to the cabin every year, and it's an 11-hour road trip. And I think one road trip I just sat there making granny squares. That might have been the trip that we listened to the entire Taylor Swift discography from beginning to end. You know, that was a fun trip. Fun road trip. Granny squares and Taylor Swift. Can you tell what my hyperfixations are? So same thing as I mentioned before, once you get to larger and larger, you're going to start just doing 3 clusters in each of those chain spaces besides your corner spaces. If you're just starting out, you might forget, and you might get a weird, awkward shape because maybe you forget to do the corner space the correct way. Maybe you forget to chain in your corner space. All of these things have happened to all of us when we're learning. This is why yarn is amazing, because you just pull it out and start over. Not the end of the world. It's frustrating, for sure, but not like with sewing. I am a sewist. I love sewing, but it's a little bit different because if you cut something, serge something, sew something together and cut off the ends incorrectly, you can't really fix it. I mean, you can, there's ways, but it's not like this. I just love these colors together. It's so perfect for the month of February. February is my favorite month, and yes, it is because my birthday is this month. I was born on a Friday the 13th, just a little fun fact. That's my fun fact when, you know, people say, share a fun fact. Well, I was born on Friday the 13th. I weighed 4 pounds and 13 ounces. I think we lived on like something 13 Street. The hospital room had a 13 in it. There was just a lot of 13s throughout my life. So yeah, 13. Lucky 13 for me. But with February being my birthday month, I've always had an affinity for hearts and things that are pink and love and sparkles. It's just part of, I feel like it's just part of my personality and built into my DNA at this point. But with that said, I have never celebrated Valentine's Day. And I think honestly, it's because it's the day after my birthday. And I was like, I'm not celebrating this day because it's not a real day. My birthday's a real day. So I'm pretty sure I just had a little snotty attitude about it. And luckily, the hubs, again, coming up on 22 years next month, feels the same way I do because he's a romantic anyway. He takes care of me, so I don't need a special day for him to tell me, just like he doesn't need a special day. Not there's anything wrong with Valentine's Day. If you celebrate it, go for it. It just, I look at it as my birthday month. And we are going to a restaurant. We're going to actually get out of the house. He's taking me to a little French restaurant up the way. Excited about that. Okay, where are we? We're on the last row. So I always, again, like to double check on that last row, just to see if I need to adjust my tension or anything. And so you've probably, if you've been paying attention, you'll see that I have used this 6 millimeter crochet hook for almost the entire square. So for me, I found that that's my sweet spot, but it really does depend on, you know, what you typically do for your tension. Okay, so let's see how much we have left. That looks good. I think we're doing pretty well on this. Okay, I chained one. Yes, now we're back here. Oh, you just started, Anna, you just started learning crochet. Yes, you are in for a treat. It will be addicting. You can do it anywhere. I will tell you, for me though, I cannot do it at the same time as like watching a show or anything. And I know people do, but I have to pay attention because I need my closed captioning on so I can see what's being said. And if I am focusing on the yarn, then I have to just pause what I'm watching. So not quite something that I can do. All right, so here, let's take a look at this so I can show you where my brain is. So this is all we have left. This is all we have left. I still need to do a cluster, and then I also need to do a chain one. So this, in my eyeballs, I don't think this is enough to do a cluster and a chain one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to undo just 2 stitches because we're pretty darn close. And then I'm gonna switch to my 4.5 just to tighten it up just a little bit here. Chain one. Okay, so now with the smaller hook, this might actually make it so that it fits a little bit better. So now I'm gonna do my cluster. So I need one more cluster and a chain one. We're gonna be close, but remember, if you go into the next color, it is not the end of the world because that will be hidden under the next row's cluster. So that is actually probably what you want to aim for. Also, this white round for this yarn is the last round. So you can actually, there's a lot of things you can do with the last round because you're not trying to get to the next color perfectly. You're just trying to use this round of yarn so that it works, if that makes sense. Okay, so let me do this last cluster. No, I still don't like that. There's still a little bit too much. So I'm just going to, so what I'm doing, again, I'm trying to tell you what I'm doing as I'm doing it. I'm going to back up here to this 3 chain, and then I'm going to tighten that. So I'm just giving it a pretty tight tension. I just want to have enough yarn to do 1 chain one, hopefully, without getting into the next color. Okay. All right, so now let's see where we are. Now I might have gone too tight because that also can happen. And chain 1. Ah, look at that. See, it's just so satisfying when it gets exactly where it needs to be. So now we are going to, again, go here, push that through, and slip stitch. Now, typically when I'm making granny squares, if I'm making like something small, I might just do 4 rows. These squares are set up for 5. So you have the 5 color changes here. I do like this size. It is, what is this? This is actually 6. So this is a 6-inch granny square. I think mine are typically 4 inches. Let me see if that's what this is. No, actually this is about 5, but my typical granny square, I want to show you something when I use my own tension. Let me show you. Okay, here's one that I did. And this one is like really tight tension. This one's really tiny. And that one is about 4.5. Here's another design. These are all that I was just playing with. Like I found just different patterns online. But where is, okay. So for example, here is just like my standard tension that I would use with a granny square. And this one does have 1, 2, 3, 4. This one has 5. So if I put this on top of here, look how small it is. Look how small that is compared to this. And that again has to do with the tension because this is all, I'm using all the same weight yarn, but it really is tension. So just keep that in mind. And that's why when you have yarns like this that are all in one, it is going to be challenging because not everyone has the same tension as they're working with their granny squares. And it's very obvious when I put these two together, since this is what my tension typically looks like. See, and I think it looks so much better. But again, that's my own personal preference. I like a tighter tension. This just looks so loose, but it's the look. Oh, the skull, I found a pattern online. I don't even know. I think I just searched for skull granny square. I didn't find it that difficult, but also I already have experience with granny squares. So it was a little bit more challenging than what I've done in the past, but just, yeah, do a search for skull granny square. And this, something like this should probably come up. I'm trying to look too, see if there's any others that I did. This one I totally messed up on. I'm trying to see if I can show you. This was one of, I was trying to follow this pattern, got distracted. Can I see where I messed up on it? In my brain, it was obvious. I did too many, I think I did too many clusters. I don't know. It still looks cool though. And I'm still happy with it. It's probably like 2 years old. And have I done anything with it? Nope. Just make them all. Ooh, the others though, I think I did show this. I'm so happy that I finally did something with this. So these, so last year I had made this granny square because I was on this whole Taylor Swift granny square kick. So this is a little bit different granny square than what I do. I would do like a granny square heart. This one is more of a crochet heart and then do a granny square around it. But I made these black granny squares, and I also made my folklore okay, granny square. And I've had these for like 1.5 years, just sitting on my blocking board. And I finally this last week decided to try to finish some projects. So I stitched in a zipper. This is actually my working bag, by the way. This is the one that I'm carrying. I stitched in a zipper. I added just this little strap here. I just sewed those on. And then, of course, you know, because you always have to carry your tape measure. You never know what you need. Okay, cool. So where were we? So now we're back on this one here. Actually, let me finish this one because I know some people are here just to see the all-in-one, and I do want to show you the last row is the best row, because the last row you do not really have to measure your tension. You don't have to make it as loose as you would. For me, it's my favorite round because I am just going to switch to a 5 now. So I don't need it to be loose. I'm not trying to get a color change. I'm just trying to get it so that I don't use too much of the yarn. And so for me to do that, I just switch back to my 5, and then I can go around the whole thing to finish it up very easily. So again, we're going to chain 1 and then turn, chain 2, chain 3. But then, yeah, when you get to the last round, you're like, oh, I'm home free. I'm home free because really now there's no trepidation that, oh, and that's fine. There's no trepidation that you're gonna run out of yarn. It's just a matter of finishing it off. I also do like to switch back to 5 and do it a little bit tighter just to neaten it up, since the rest of the stitches have to be so loose to me. I just think this adds a nice little, just makes it all come together. So this is the method that I have found to work. It's the method, or it's the pattern that I really enjoy. The packaging does have a totally different pattern on there. Even following the pattern, okay, I did try using the pattern that they suggested. Even with that, it did not work the way that they said it should. I had to frog a million times. I also did not like the way it looks. So, you know, you can try it, but it is not a fail-safe. It is not going to immediately work, no matter what. Dun, dun, dun. 3, 3.
All right, I think I got the trolls. I'm gonna jump on with Bri.
Oh, cool, cool. Will you keep it open though, just to keep an eye open?
I will.
Thank you so much, babe.
Of course.
Yeah, so this round you could just like whiz through. And if you're just popping in and you have questions, let me know. I am more than happy to slow down a little bit and show you what we were doing. We're just finishing up this all-in-one crochet granny square from Red Heart in this colorway. I was tempted to go back. I think I mentioned I was thinking about going to Joann's and picking up some more, but now that I've had a chance to really play, I bought 4 different color skeins of it, and now that I've had a chance to play with it, I just don't think it's something that I want to invest my money in unless I'm going on a long road trip. Maybe I'm going on a flight in May, so maybe that would be a great time to have it. Then I don't have to carry so much in my, because I'm only bringing carry-on, so. Dun, dun, dun. Yes. I love, so the Hubs is, the Hubs is playing Diablo. So I get, it's a video game, to those that don't know. And he and his buddies have like a guild. It's called Barbie's World, and I think it's adorable. It's not for Barbie, but they play a character. They all play the same character, I think called a barbarian. So they named their little guild Barbie's World. I'm like, oh. They don't want it to be cute, but it is cute. I've tried to get into video games. I'm always like, yeah, find me a game. I'll play. No, I can't. It's just, there's too much. There's too many buttons. There's too many things you have to pay attention to. I like, simple games. Like, I don't know, trivia or Super Mario Brothers. Okay, that's fun. But I would also rather just be crocheting or doing crafting, if I'm being honest. I did think, I'm like, wouldn't it be cool to be like a video game streamer though? I'm like, oh, I would be so horrible at it. I would get so distracted. But I do know a lot of the, I don't know them personally. I know of a lot of gaming streamers because the Hubs puts that on in the background. So, oh wait, did I chain one? Remember how to tell if you chain one, there's only one loop there, we're good. I chained one. We're gonna finish this square, y'all, together. That's awesome. And so just to, for all the folks out there that are just starting out with this yarn, you're not sure if you want to invest in it, take the time. Treat it like a challenge. Can you finish the round correctly? That's always the question. But see, look, okay, I'm on the final round, right? I'm almost done and I have so much yarn left. That's why this last row is like my favorite, because I do not even have to think about it. I do the regular tension that I use. And then once I steam block these, they'll all just be perfect. Honestly, I don't even know if I really need to steam block them. I mean, this is how they turn out, the way that they are, and they're pretty awesome. So oh, it's like we're almost to the finish line. Okay, one more cluster. And we're gonna finish the other one too, because I do wanna have a real example to show you on the difference that it takes in time. Okay, so now we're just gonna slip stitch. Come on, there we go. There we go. We are done. And look how much white we still have left over. So there is no fear. For me, the last round is my favorite. You can see the tension still is even to me. It's fine. And then I can cut right there. Actually, I'm going to leave a little bit of white. And this is how you start the next square. So again, if you were not here at the beginning, I did start my granny square with about 12 inches of tail, because I found for my tension, if I don't start with that much of a tail, it just doesn't quite work out. So I can just pull that through. And again, the benefits of this yarn, what they say is so you don't have all of those tails to weave in. But guess what? I still have this one and I'll still have this one. Okay, so I still have 2. So as opposed to 5, now I have 2. But I also had to spend a lot of extra time trying to get it to meet up at the right spot. So again, I gave it a 6. I might say a 5. I'm on the fence, 5 or 6 out of 10 for this yarn right here. But let's go back to our granny square. Now, remember, we've already, we tightened off our color change, so we could just snip these yarn tails off. If you don't feel comfortable with that, like I said, if you're afraid that it's going to slip out when you wash it, maybe you have some really slick yarn, by all means, you can take your hook and hide it in here. In fact, why don't we just do that? Because again, I'm going to show you, does not take long. It does not take it does not take a long time to hide your yarn tails. So I'm just going within the clusters here, just making sure not to go through the front so that it's not visible. I'm just going to pull it back this way. And then I'm going to go through one more time. Come out here. Didn't get all of them there. Here, I'll just pull this one and then I'll get the pink one. So if you're worried, I mean, it's literally that easy to hide a yarn tail on this. Now there are some times where yarn tails are, if you have like 40, or if you haven't been doing it as you go. And I think that might also be the other issue. If you're not hiding your yarn tails or tucking your yarn tails as you are working on your granny squares, if you have a whole entire stack that you have to go through and do that, yeah, that might be super frustrating. But look, I mean, and we already did this one, so we could hide that as well. I absolutely think just doing the color change yourself is still the right way to go. Okay, so now we're going to switch to a new color. This one, let's see, we're just kind of doing a coordinating color. So this one, they have this light pink. I don't have a light pink in this same type of yarn. So we're going to mix it up, and we're actually going to use a pattern yarn because I bought a ton of this because it's gorgeous. It's so gorgeous and it coordinates. So we're just going to do this. So that's also another option for you. If you have self-striping yarn or you have like a variegated yarn, you can just do a full granny square of this and it'll just change colors throughout. It will not have the distinct color rows, but I mean, it's a great way to get color. It'll be different for each one, and it'll be super simple because then you won't have any tails to hide anyway. So let's go ahead and snip that, pull that through, tighten it up, flip, and we're gonna continue to use that 6mm hook. All right. All right, so we're gonna come up this will be our last round on here, and then we can wrap up for the day. Thank you again, everybody, for showing up. Let me know in the comments or send me a message if there's something you want me to show in our next live. I think that Sundays will be our days going forward. We've done Sundays the last couple of weeks in a row, and they seem to work out pretty well. So if there's anything you want me to cover with like circular knitting machine, crochet, crafts in general, let me know. All right, let's see. I'm hoping this this yarn will look really pretty. Whoops. Okay, I'm gonna pull that out just so that I can make sure that the yarn tail gets in there. Ooh, this yarn, it's so funny though, switching between yarns, because this yarn, it feels thinner. It definitely feels thinner. This yarn, they recommend a 5mm. It is a 4. It's a 4 medium, and this yarn is also 4. So every yarn can feel totally different. I'm looking to see. Yep, this one is a 4 medium as well, but it definitely does not feel the same. It's definitely softer. All right, so now we're gonna get to see how I'm hoping this will look really pretty with the color changes and it'll coordinate. And then the last color, I wanted to try to get the same color that was on the on here, this little color here, but this is like a off pink. It's such a weird thing. I put it up to my whites, it's not white. I put it up to my creams, it's not cream. It definitely has like a pink hue to it, so I would need to check Red Heart and see if there's a specific color that maybe it's called, like, I don't know, rose or something. It's just not quite right, and it's not quite white, and it's not quite cream. Okay, so I just want to see how all these colors coordinate with this piece here. But yeah, if you were just doing one granny square with just color changing yarn, that would also be a really cool idea. Granny squares don't have to change colors, okay? They can be whatever you want them to be. It's kind of like, it's like a soup, okay? That's where my brain went. That's the analogy. I must be hungry. But it's like a soup. It's a base. You can do whatever you want. You can change the colors, not change the colors, add a design, not add a design, make bags, make blankets, tops, pillows, glass koozies, dish towels, we heard earlier. See, we are going to get through both of this. Yay! And then I will eat, and then I will be watching the Grammys red carpet. That is what I have on my agenda today. Okay, let's see how it's turning out. It's okay. I was hoping that pink would show up, so hopefully the light pink will show up, but we could do more than one round of this color, which I probably will, just to get it to the 5, if I'm going to use it with this. But I don't know if I'm going to. This might actually turn out to be its own little project. Oh, I can hear him up there talking to his buddies. Okay. Oh, lost the internet for a second. Oh, it's probably because he is online. I just want to get through this round just to, so that those of you that are like me that need to have like that check mark, that completion box for your brain, we have that done. Because after this live, I know what's going to happen is I'm going to put it down and I'm not going to pick it up again for probably ever. So let's get it done. It's my ADHD hack. Don't set anything down until you're done with it. Oh, come on, I want that pink. I'm not getting any of the pink in here. This orange color reminds me of baby aspirin, which is weird because I don't know the last time that I have even seen baby aspirin. Oh, none of you want to be in my brain, that's for sure. Okay, are we at the, we're almost at the end. We didn't get any of that pink, so we would go around another round today. There's 2 on there, yep. And then also, if you're just gonna keep going with your squares, you can always add different edging to your projects. I love a scallop, and a scallop is super simple. And I just really like how it looks, and I use it on almost every one of my projects. Here we go. We're just gonna finish this round. Look at that. Slip stitch right through there. Come on, we're almost done. We're almost done. Yarn, cooperate. Kind of. And there we go. There is, actually, let's, come on, flip it this way so it looks a little bit cleaner. So this is the one. I did not do the 5th round. Again, that could be for a later time. But this compared to this, which would you choose? Would you prefer using the all-in-one, which takes a lot longer in my opinion, or being able to choose your own colors? You know how I feel. I feel like this is the way we would go, make our own. You know, then you can also make additional patterns as I showed you as well. All right, so let's wrap this up. I do want to show off. Okay, I'm sweating. I was doing a lot of work there. I do want to show off the little vest that I got. I bought this on Etsy, and I bought it from a really cute shop. I linked her down below. Always trying to support small businesses. So if you are a small business and you know, you have some really cool things that you want to share, reach out to me. Totally. I don't expect to get anything for free. I will absolutely pay for things, but I love supporting small businesses. I'm really encouraging all of you to stay creative and you know, love what you do, because I think it's so important in, you know, in our days to just be creative. But isn't it adorable? And yes, I can make it, I know, but it's a little bit different supporting other folks, right? And yes, hey Shay, you'd rather choose my own because you change your mind a lot. Exactly. Plus, if you can choose your own, you can use up all those yarn scraps or your little yarn pieces, so then that way you don't have any waste. Such a great thing. And then for those of you that didn't get to see, I wanted to show off my little, this is the little dress that I made. In fact, I'm gonna show you. Okay. There's the bad office, and you're gonna see it's fine. I'm showing you my entire world because I am an open book. You can see the disaster, and okay, I'm gonna show you this. So this is what you don't usually get to see during a produced long video. Here is my station. This is where I was. This is how disastrous this whole spot looks. Over here, we have all of this. But this is the most recent project that I created that I love. It's for a little kiddo. This was using crochet and the circular knitting machine. This was, you know, just, again, a granny square. That's all this is. This just what we were just doing together. That is what this is. We just did color changes at different times to create the heart shape. So you can do this. If you can do a regular granny square, you can make this one right here as well. So absolutely, you can do this. And then I just want to show off one other little detail. Then I just added, you know, a little crochet heart to the end of our straps. And the idea that I had for this actually was a pinafore style, which is what I was going for. I was going to put like little overalls on it. But because the kiddo isn't here, I don't know exactly. I have their measurements, but you know, you don't know if it's going to fit. And I didn't want to make it overly complicated for mom to have to figure out how to make it fit. So this way she can adjust it at the top. She can tighten the drawstring when she needs to, and easy peasy, beautiful. So you made a chicken. Yes, chickens are like all the thing right now, right? Like little chickens. And happy birthday. Another fellow February birthday. Yes. Happy birthday. Hopefully you have a lovely day and do some crafting and really have, you know, a fabulous time. I wish you a great birthday. That is awesome. Well, and thanks for stopping by on your birthday. That's wonderful. Okay, so one of these days I'll give you a full office tour and I'll show you because, you know, I do have pretty, how disastrous is this? It doesn't matter because I'm just going to show you anyway. So then these are organized, by the way. And then this is all of my sewing. I usually keep my, my blocking board up here. Okay, hold on. My Cricut station is all the way over there, all my Cricut stuff. And then this is my fuse bead section that I got into for a while. And then here's my fun yarn. And then all my machines are up here. Anyway, I don't know why I just got the urge to share with you my world because y'all have spent so much time with me today. And then my girl, sewing, one of my first loves. So that is it, everybody. We're gonna break for today, but next Sunday I will put another live out, either 12 or 1, depending on when folks can attend. And I appreciate all of you. Stay crafty, and yeah, until next time, see ya. If I can figure out how to turn it off. That's always my problem. There we go. All right, bye everyone.